Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my book review of the book The Last Druid by Terry Brooks, the fourth and final book in the Fall of Shannara tetralogy, and the final book in the Shannara Chronicles. If you've been following along my channel, I am a huge Terry Brooks fan. I have read all of the 29 Shannara books now. I started my journey with Shannara in 2017 with my copy of The Sword of Shannara. And I loved it so much, I wanted to keep going and read the sequels and read more books. And I eventually became not only a Shannara fan, but a fantasy fan. This was the first real, if you're excluding something like Harry Potter, this was the first epic fantasy novel that I ever read on my own fully that I enjoyed. And so I, read through a whole series, and there's been ups and downs. There were some that were amazing top-tier fantasy for me, and then there were some books and series that were subpar and a few bad ones. But overall, Terry Brooks is a consistently good writer. And then we had, and I think his weakest point actually is probably in his later years as a writer. The Defenders of Shannara series I thought was actually pretty weak, as was the duology that he did. That's the prequel duology. But anyway, he does actually a good job. And so this tetralogy that is ending the Shannara series includes 4 books: The Fall of Shannara, which I enjoyed. The Black Elf Stone is the first book, and then you have The Scar Invasion, which I also really enjoyed, and then the one that I actually really loved was The Steel Assassin, and I have reviews for all of these books. If you just search up the title of the book and my name, Jonathan Cohn, you will find the book on your screen. As Brian Lee Durfee would say, it will magically appear on your screen. But I have reviews for all those, and so this book, The Last Druid, is the final Shannara book. Yes, The Last Druid wraps up this series and the series as a whole. And so going into this book, I knew I was going to be a little bit emotional because I knew that this was the end of a series that is very much near and dear to my heart. But I also knew that Terry Brooks was going to do it a little bit differently, because from reviews I had seen that Terry apparently doesn't take the traditional route of making it big and bombastic. This is not the Avengers Endgame finale where you're seeing all these characters from all these different periods of time come in, and you see all of these connections and all of this huge, epic, over-the-top battle where everything is, finished up. It's not like that. It's many writers would have written something like A Memory of Light from the Wheel of Time, which is a terrific book, one of my favorite fantasy books, but it's a very different book, and Terry Brooks has his own very much unique style, and especially with the way he ends his series. And I believe that this book is a perfect encapsulation of how he likes to write not only his own books, but specifically his own endings. And I think that this book, if you wanted to personify if you wanted to codify the way to end a Terry Brooks book, this kind of gets it, because you can see some shades of the original Sword of Shannara in here. You can see some shades of Talismans of Shannara. You can see some shades of a few other Shannara novels that I thought were really excellently done. This being the final book in the Shannara series, I'm just going to have to say, I kind of have to talk about spoilers. One, because how do you not talk about spoilers when you're in the final book of this 4-book series of a 29-book series, but also because a lot of the thoughts I have regarding this book are regarding spoilers. So you've been warned. I'm going to start talking about some spoilers later on, because it not only will spoil stuff from this book, but also the previous books in the series. Because if you're watching this video, we're talking about the 4th book. So anyway, with the spoilers of this book had a lot of plot lines to wrap up. You had Tarsha, Kanan, her brother is lost to her, which I didn't actually realize he had died in the end of Steel Assassin, I thought for sure he was coming back in some way. But then he's pretty definitive. Nope, he did at the beginning of the book. And I was like, okay, he's dead. I didn't expect that. What's Tarsha gonna do now? And so you have to follow her plotline as she tries to find Drisker, she tries to stop Clizia, of course, and determine what's gonna happen with her life. You also have the plotline of the stuff between the Scar and the Federation and their political stuff happening with Beladrin Rush, which was actually a great storyline here. You also have the storyline of the stuff happening over in Scar's Land, over in Eurodia, that I thought was also really well done. You have Dar, Lee, and Shay Almsford and D'Amphere, Agent D'Amphere, and you're following them as they go and try to put together the machine that's gonna help change the weather for the better in Eurodia, so that the Scar people don't have to come to the Four Lands. And so you have all those plot lines, and then there's one more plot line, and that is the Drisker and plot line that happens in The Forbidding. Yes, this was a plot line that I did not know was specifically coming, but I was pleasantly enjoying it. And this is a plot line, each of the other books I talked about, it has connections to this series, it has connections to this series. And certainly I would say that in terms of the way this book ends, there's, as I said, shades of Talismans of Shannara, shades of Sword of Shannara, and a few shades of the High Druid trilogy for its ending. But I'll specifically say that the whole Drisker down in the Forbidding really reminded me of the High Druid trilogy, and I would say it has a lot of connections to the High Druid trilogy. When getting to see Weka Dart was great. I love Weka. He's hilarious. He's an interesting character. But then, of course, the big reveal is that Grianne Omsford is in the Forbidding, and that's who Al-Anon has to go and find. And we kind of knew that from the previous book, but you know it for sure in this book. And you get to see Grianne Omsford, and she returns, and it's epic, and it's big, and it's cool to see her. Although it's not as epic as other authors would make it. Again, it's epic for a Terry Brooks level. So you have all those plot lines. My favorite plot line was the whole political plot line of the Federation versus the Federation versus the Scars. That stuff was really well done. It was interesting the way he did perspective, where you see Beladrin was a point of view character, but there was also supposed to be mystery about her, so it was a little bit confusing. Even because I was like, wait a second, isn't this supposed to be a mystery? But why did you just reveal that information about her, that she was playing both sides? Anyway, and then I really enjoyed some of the Scars Land storyline. Not all of it, but a lot of the Scars Land storyline I thought was really visual and really, really creative, and really felt like Shannara novels. Particularly, I saw elements of the Sword of Shannara in there. And then there were also the whole storyline with Tarsha. It felt very much like all the Shannara books across the board. And her fulfilling each of the parts of the prophecy I thought was pretty interesting. Although the decision to pair her up with Shay and basically say that they're going to be a item in the future when he's 15 and she's 18, it was just weird. I would have aged her down or aged Shay up if I had known that was going to happen. Or I would have waited, I would have changed some things, because it was just weird the way he did it. And of course you could be like, it's fantasy, and it's nothing. It is nothing compared to what George Martin would put in there. But still, I was like, you don't have to make it weird, Terry. You don't have to make it weird. But I thought they were interesting to follow. And I want to spend a few minutes on the ending of the book. And when I say the ending, I mean the ending of the book. And I've already given you a spoiler warning. Boy, am I giving you a big spoiler warning right now. There is something about this ending that I think is both frustrating and brilliant at the same time. So, again, I'm warning you, talking about the ending. This book's ending talks about whether we have a need for the Druids. The whole Shannara universe has been about druids and magic. Those are the two elements that are important. And you're constantly seeing where the druids have all the power or druids have none of the power. And occasionally you see times in between. And you see that struggle between the power, no power, between science and magic. You see that struggle that's happening. And usually the answer is yes, we need druids. Yes, we need druids to help out. But there's a few books, let's say the High Druid trilogy, that makes me think, maybe we don't need the druids. And there's a few books, a few characters, like Clysioporus in this series, or the druids that show up in the Black Elfstone, the first book in this series. All of them make me think maybe we don't need the druids because they're bad. But there's that debate. And so the book ends on the debate of, do we need the druids or not? And that is a very interesting discussion, especially for Terry Brooks to have, because obviously to me the answer is yes. But he outlines the counter-argument so clearly, and he doesn't answer it. He does not answer the question. It kind of has that kind of inception. I wouldn't call this a cliffhanger. I would call this more of an open-ended ending where you see Shay and you see Tarsha. Tarsha being the last official druid, Shay being kind of her protege. I just thought of that. Her protege. And the two of them are sitting there talking about whether or not to keep it going. And Shay basically says, I'll trust whatever you do, Tarsha. And we don't find out. You don't know. It basically ends with her saying, well, let's think about it. And you don't know, does she keep the druids going? Does she end it? Does she get rid of Paranor? Does she keep Paranor, move in, and start doing things with it? We don't know. And this was so frustrating when my initial reaction was, oh, come on, don't do that, Terry Brooks. But then I thought about it a little more, and I was like, no, this is a brilliant ending, because this is a way for every fan to feel justified about the ending. If you were the type of fan that wanted that bittersweet, wanted the Paranor to go away, I think that you can imagine a future where that happens. And if you are a fan who wants to keep the druids and wants to keep Paranor there and wants to keep the story going, you can imagine that happens. Any stories in this universe post this book will be in the hearts and minds of fans. Terry Brooks is not going to write any books after this in the timeline. He's said he's done with that. And I could see in the future his estate might try to pawn off some of the books to others, but I don't think that would work. If I were Terry Brooks and I were his estate, or I was his estate, and I was either going to A, have him write the books, or B, have someone else write the books, I would set the books at other points in the timeline. I think that there is ripe opportunity to write some storylines before the first king of Shannara, to talk about the formation of the druids, to talk about the formation of the different lands, because before First King, you don't have any of the lands established, and then boom, they're all there in First King. I would like to see that kind of unfold. Also, the time between First King and Short of Shannara. Write a Shannara novel that has no magic. Maybe have Al-Anon traveling around, but really don't have magic or magical things going on. Tell a non-magic story in this universe. I think that there's plenty of ripe opportunities, but I don't think that any stories will be written in this universe after the events of The Last Druid, and that's why it's essentially up to the fans to determine. Did they destroy Paranor? Did they keep it and keep the magic going? It is up to you in your head. And whatever you think the characters decided is the right answer for you. And that is an incredibly difficult thing to pull off in literature, especially with big series endings like this. It's very difficult to make a series open-ended. But boy, when you pull it off like this, you feel all the feels here. And really, there is just in the final chapter, there is a great discussion between Tarsha and between Shay, where they are discussing the need for that. And it's like, why did you stick around for this 29-book series? Let's in one small chapter, let's pay it off. Let's give you the reasoning for why this is all happening. And I just thought that was absolutely delightful and absolutely, emotional without, it's not like major characters were dying. It's like major characters were getting married off. It's not like major things were happening to the characters like that. It was more of just the somber, let's discuss why we've done all of this. And it was just so well done. And it, I'm feeling a little emotional right now talking about it because this series means so much to me as a reader. And man, this is going to be a longer review. So I wanted to talk about that ending because that ending was just beautiful. And also, I didn't love the whole thing between Darlie and Agent and them constantly having will we stay together or will we just break up? Will we stay together? Will we just break up? Like, I was like, come on, guys, just make the decision. Be together. That's what you're supposed to be. And then he leaves, and I was like, oh no, is he going back to Tarsha? Maybe they never had really a thing going on. And then I thought, wait a second, he's just going to be destined to be alone? No, that doesn't make sense. Is he just going to hang out with his friends in Elfland, in the Eastland? No, that doesn't make sense. And then finally, she comes back and brings him in, and they decide to live life together. I wish they had made it that he was the king, and so it was like a merging of the two lands, and he was king, she was queen, and they're married and all that stuff. Instead, they decided to go the non-traditional route of their relationship, which, okay, you want to go there. But at least I was a little bit happy that they were together, if that makes sense. But I liked that part of the ending. The whole sequence where Shay is looking up and seeing the ship go up into the storm, and then the storm strikes the ship, and the machine bursts, and then Shay screams, and then Shay unleashes the wish song, and the wish song combined with the machine, it's like the science and the magic combining together to do the right thing. It wasn't just magic that was necessary, and it wasn't just science that was necessary. It was magic and silence. Together, they're able to stop the storm. They're able to bring back springtime for Skarsland and Germany. If you get that reference, please let me know. But they bring back springtime, and they're able to fix the land. And I just thought that was a very, visually, I can see that happening in my brain, and it's very, if they ever make a movie for this, I'm going to cry in theaters, because so much of this is just so visually appealing. But you start, when we started the Shannara series, there was a lone single druid named Alanon. And as it goes on, you have times where there's no druids, and then times where the druids start forming and they start building up. And so you have something like the High Druid trilogy where there's a ton of druids around, and then you see the slow decline in this series back to one druid. And it feels like we're kind of resetting back to where it was. And so I just think that Terry Brooks just did a phenomenal job with this book. Maybe I would have done some things differently. I think that I would have tried to make more connections to the OG. I would have had more time, maybe have something between the new Shay Elmsford and the OG Shay Elmsford. Maybe there's the shade of the original Shay is around somehow or something like that. Or maybe you have even Will Elmsford, who, the Elfstones of Shannara is the Shannara novel that connects with the most with fans. It's not my favorite, but it's the one that connects the most with fans. And I wondered, maybe he should have brought in Will somehow. But regardless, it still felt connected, and it still felt thematically consistent. And it felt like a solid ending for the series. And the book itself is a great book. I would still put this as like a top tier book of the year for me, like a 9.5 out of 10 maybe. But the ending of this book is just, it's so thought-provoking. It's so thought-provoking. Again, I could have made the whole video just about the last couple pages of the book, but I won't just do that again. One real quick note, this series started out the standard length of Shannara novels around the 350-page range, and then it got into the 400-page range with books 2 and 3, and then it jumped up, and this book's in mass market, 578 pages. And so I checked, and there are only 2 Shannara novels. Actually, it might just be one. Let me quickly check to verify this, because I might be wrong about this. Nope, I'm not wrong. Or I was wrong a little bit. So this is the second longest Shannara novel in mass market paperback that I have. Now maybe someone else has a different edition that's a little bit longer of one, but this is the second longest Shannara book for me, besides the original Sword of Shannara. And so I think that it has the kind of nice thing where he was getting each book longer in the series, and it was, I think that he had the element of he didn't want it to end, he didn't want the game to end, and he just wanted to keep writing, and so it was bittersweet for him to leave the series, which is why the book's so long. And I also think that he just had a lot of story to wrap up, which is good. He didn't just turn in a short book like other authors might have and just said, all right, this is the same length as the others, I'm done. No, he made sure that everything gets wrapped up enough in this book. And it's kind of, again, thematically, that it started with this long book, and each book started getting shorter. And then they start getting longer again, and then they go back to a longer format with this one. So that's my review of The Last Druid. I know that was a lot longer than normal. I know that that was really in depth, and I really talked about things, but this series means so much to me. I've been reading this now since 2017, so about 6.5 years. Because it was, I believe, April 2017 that I first picked up the first book. So I believe it may have been March or February, but still, it was early 2017. So it's been 6.5 years that I've been reading this series. And now that I'm done, I just feel like, oh my goodness. For one, I want to reread the series, but also I'm just like, man, that was quite the journey. I can't wait to read more. So if you've read The Last Druid, what did you think of it? What did you think of my spoiler thoughts? Do you agree with me on some of my points? Do you think I'm crazy? Did you hate this ending? Let me know your thoughts on the ending of the book in the comments section down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.